Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this episode number 2 of our webinar series, NI Case Studies on Climate Action. I'm really excited today because we have this episode focusing on innovating for a climate-compatible food production. I'm Géraldine Noé. I'm Head of Environment at Business in the Community NI, and very happy to see you all today. I'm also delighted to be joined today by our guest speakers. So we have George Mullan from ABP Foodgroup, Neville Graham from Dale Farm, and Francis Lively from the Agri-Food and Biosciences Institute. So gentlemen, you are very, very welcome. If we look at today's agenda, we are here together for 45 minutes. So this will be quick and nice. I hope you have a nice cup of tea with you. We'll start with a quick introduction from me, then we'll move to presentations from our guest speakers and have a time for a Q&A from the audience at the end. So stay with us until the end. If you have questions, you can pop them in the chat box or in the questions panel on the right-hand side of your screen. Just know that we cannot see or hear any of the attendees in the audience. So if you have any technical problem or any questions, please do pop them in the chat box. So just a very brief introduction from me. This webinar series is part of our Business Action on Climate campaign, where we want to challenge and support all organizations in Northern Ireland to take action on the climate emergency. We want to challenge you to sign our Climate Action Pledge. So this pledge, when you sign it, you commit to reducing your greenhouse gas emissions either by 30% or 50% by 2030. You choose the level. We have we have loads of resources available on our webpage, bitcni.org.uk/climate. So this is where you can find support and all kinds of information on how to get to the point where you can sign the pledge or make progress on reaching your target and connecting with other organizations to collaborate on this crucial topic. We've put here just the last toolkit that we have published, which is how to get started on your climate journey. If anything that I've said is unclear, or if you are not sure where to start, please do get in touch with us at environment@bitcni.org.uk. Always happy to have a conversation with you. And finally, the last bit of information from me is that this is a webinar series. This is episode number 2, and we have the last episode next Monday on industry with our climate champion and Cirque. So do register and do join us as well. I'd like to start maybe with a quick Mythbuster. So you'll be asked to vote on this. So this is just a quick game. We won't be showing who has got the answer right or wrong. It's just to it's just to have a bit of fun, really. So how much bigger is the footprint of a steak from deforested land in Brazil compared to a steak from the UK? So first possibility is that these two steaks will have the same footprint. Answer number 2, the steak from Brazil has a carbon footprint that is 2 times bigger than the UK steak. Or answer 3 times bigger. So if we launch the poll, you should be able to vote. Perfect. So we'll give you a minute or two so you are able to vote. Okay, perfect. So if we can show the results. Or not, maybe. Yes, perfect. So 73% of you voted. Okay, I'm going to read them. Okay, perfect. 73% voted that the steak from deforested land in Brazil has a carbon footprint that is 3 times bigger than the UK steak. which is correct. That is true. So if I give you the figures for an 8-ounce steak, so the one from the UK is 5.8 kilogram of CO2 equivalent. So that's a raw steak. And the one from deforested land in Brazil is 17.8 kilograms of CO2 equivalent. So 5.8 versus 17.8 kilograms CO2 equivalent. And just an interesting fact as well, the steak from the UK, 90% of its footprint comes from the beef farming itself. So that's a very nice transition to our topic from today. Just so you know, these figures are from a book called How Bad Are Bananas? The Carbon Footprint of Everything from Mike Berners-Lee, and it's a very interesting read. And I imagine that the footprint of the UK steak is before any of the improvements that we are going to talk about today. So I would like to welcome our first guest speaker, George from ABP Foodgroup. Take it away.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I assume you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. Okay, so just a quick overview of ABP. We could just move on to the second slide. Yes. Okay. ABP has we have an annual turnover of 2.7 billion sterling. We have 11,000 employees over 47 production sites, primarily a beef and sheep processing company. We have 9 sites in Southern Ireland, 3 in Poland, and 14 in the UK. So we're very diverse and well spread around. As part of our company, we then have 3 aligned businesses. One is a pet food business, one is an oil business, and one is a proteins business. And the pet food business produces over 1,500 tons on a daily basis of pet food for supply mainly in Europe. And we use a lot of the products from our processing plants that we don't put on the supermarket shelves for human consumption. We use a lot of the balance of the products to go into our pet food production. Also in the oligo scenario, this is a used cooking oil business where we have a circle within the circle. Obviously in ABP, we see ourselves as a closed circle from slaughtering the animals right through to pet food and processing and things like that. Then in oligo, it has another internal circle among itself where we have projects like where we supply the cooking oil for McDonald's to use in their restaurants. We then collect the used cooking oil and we collect their food waste, and then we turn this into biodiesel. And the same biodiesel is used to power the trucks that McDonald's use to deliver their produce to their restaurants. We also then have a proteins division whereby we take the balance of the animal that's not used for human consumption or for pet food or whatever, and we process it further down to produce tallow and organic fertilizer. So we're saying that, you know, as a company, we tend to start on the farm and we work right through, and we don't waste anything per se in the process. Okay, so can we move on to the next slide, please? Yes, so within Northern Ireland, we employ 1,750 colleagues. We deal on a day-to-day basis with farmers, and that's roughly 6,000 odd farmers throughout our business. We have sites in Lurgan and Newry, and we're involved in a joint venture with Linden Foods in Dungannon. We contribute in excess of 300 million to the local economy. We are platinum sponsors at the Balmoral Show each year, where we tend to we meet and greet our farmer suppliers and have a discussion with them when they're out for their annual day out at the Balmoral Show. We're also very much involved in the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, where we partner with the likes of Queen's University, and other companies like John Deere and others, where we're constantly looking at what the future holds for agriculture and what we can do to reduce carbon footprint and be a sustainable business. So this, I mean, most recently we had a series where the farmers did a series of webinars along with AFBI, and they were discussing how they would extend the grazing of their cattle and have the animals out of grass for as long as possible, so as to reduce the carbon footprint and to get as high an intake of grass as possible within the production, so that the animals then could also be slaughtered as young as possible. It was a very innovative and worthwhile event. Can we move to the next page, please? So again, for working sustainably across the supply chain, we start at the farm, where we have a couple of trial farms, one based in the UK, one based in Ireland, where we're constantly looking at what we do with regard to improving the position on the farm with regard to sustainability, and I'll touch on that on the next slide. Processing sites, similarly, we are constantly we've been part of, we had set ourselves 2020 targets for reductions in CO2, reductions in water, electricity, energy consumption, and except for one, we achieved all these early. We achieved some of them 2 years early, some of them 3 years early. We're a company that is zero waste to landfill since 2015. We reduced our water by just short of 50%, and we reduced our electricity by 40%. So we're constantly looking at these things, and we've also signed up to new 2030 targets that are part of the science-based targets, which are part of the 2015 Paris Accord, Co-op 21, where we're going to further reduce and look in a very science-based way at reducing further water, energy, food, etc. At this present moment in time, we source all our electricity from a renewable source as well. For the consumer's point of view, we're very much part of the UK Plastics Pact. We're also part of the Northern Ireland Food and Drink Association Plastics Work Group, constantly working and looking at reducing plastic. We introduced cardboard trays to put our meat on, to put on the shelf in the supermarkets back about 18 months ago, and constantly working on that. And again, as I mentioned earlier about EIT Food, we're constantly trying to work with them to see what we can do to make the food chain as sustainable as possible at the end. And we're obviously delighted that we became a platinum member of the Northern Ireland Environmental Bench as part of the Northern Ireland Benchmarking Survey on Environment in 2020 with business in the community. Next slide, please. So further, just to develop a bit more with regard to what we're doing on farm, what we're looking at here is we're trying to take the male calf from the dairy herd, which would tend to have been possibly looked upon as a byproduct of the dairy industry. No, I don't think Neville will thank me for saying that, maybe, but what we're doing there is we're trying to work with dairy farmers so that they can source their replacement heifers by sex semen or whatever, and then they can identify a proportion of their herd that they can serve to better genetics for beef production. And what these better genetics do is they would be easy calving. They would give the animal a better feed conversion rate. We're using the genetics that would do that. We're using genetics to help the animals grow quicker, and in turn then that causes the animal that it can be slaughtered at a younger age, and therefore again working on sustainable, working at reducing CO2, where we're putting in best genetics. Cattle come to come to their full production size at as early an age as possible, and we have a suitable product and a suitable animal for the retail shelf. This has proven on some of our farm trials to lower emissions by 28%, and we have partnered with Deal Farm on the Horizon project, where we're doing exactly what we're saying in this page. So what we're doing is we're setting up, we're getting Deal Farm farmers, suppliers to use particular genetics so that we can monitor, and we buy the calves back off the Deal Farm suppliers, then we put them into rear, and then we send them on to fatteners and we buy the animals back again. So constantly tracking what this is doing for us all the time. I think that's me.
Thank you so much, George, for this overview of ABP. ABP Foodgroup is a champion of the business action on climate. So that's me giving you a shout out and thanking you again for sponsoring this campaign. And I'm really always very inspired to hear everything that you're doing and having this very holistic approach. We'll hear now from Neville Graham from Deal Farm, your partner on the Horizon project. So Neville, up to you.
Okay, thank you, Geraldine. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, just move on to the first slide. Look, just by way of introduction, I'm Neville Graham. I head up the Farmer Services division within Deal Farm. So just a wee bit of information about Deal Farm. We're a local dairy cooperative. We're actually the largest UK farmer-owned dairy cooperative. We have 1,300 farmer members. 1,250 of those farmer members are based in Northern Ireland, and we have a small cohort of producers who operate in the northwest of England and the southwest of Scotland. So we're a local dairy processor. We process around 900 million litres of milk annually, and in Northern Ireland we handle 35% of the total milk production in Northern Ireland. Now, from the slide that's in front of you, really our purpose here, because we're a dairy cooperative, we're owned by our members. So we're not just about paying a competitive milk price. We're here for the long-term viability of our members, and we wish to see family farms handed over from one generation to the next. And therefore, the work that I'm involved in and my team are involved in, we interface with those farmers. We deal with them on a daily basis on supply issues, milk quality, logistics, and we're involved in various initiatives with our farmers. And those initiatives may be around financial incentives, and we are leading the way in terms of hedging milk prices in Northern Ireland through our fixed milk price schemes. We have 3 of those in operation. And we also look at segregating milk to put into specific products, and one of those that you may see on the shelves is our Marks and Spencer's spreadable butter range. Other initiatives then that we're involved in the past 3 years, we have started to develop on-farm initiatives to look at efficiency on-farm, because we believe that if you can improve efficiency in the biological process on-farm, you actually make more money for your farmers, but it's a win-win because you also improve the efficiency of your inputs, which reduces your carbon footprint. So in the past 3 years, we have started with a soil health program, which involves soil sampling and producing nutrient management plans for farmers, and we're doing that in conjunction with a commercial company. And we have also partnered with a dairy consultancy company from the southwest of England, and we're looking at feed efficiency on farms and making best use of feed on our dairy farms. And that information, plus other information that's gathered on farms, allows us then to put together a carbon footprint for our farmers, and we're currently in our 2nd year of gathering that data. So the work with ABP on the Horizon project is a continuation of these initiatives, and And ABP staff and Deal Farm staff sat down and drew up the programme together, which was launched just about a year ago. And it's another step in working with our farmers and putting new initiatives and new technology in front of them that's going to help their business and improve their viability, so that we get that continuation of family farms being carried on. So if you just move to the second slide, please. So the Horizon Beef Programme was born about a year ago. The principal companies involved here are Deal Farm and ABP. So just to add a wee bit more to what George said, in terms of the programme, how it works. So bespoke Aberdeen Angus calves are born on Deal Farm dairy farms. So these calves would be of superior genetics in terms of growth rate food conversion. Those calves spend 3 to 4 weeks on farm, and then they move to rearers and then on to finishing units and produce an in-spec carcass in around 18 to 20 months. So that timeline or time frame shows you the life cycle of the animal, and with using these superior genetics, you're reaching your goal of a carcass which is in spec in a shorter time frame, and therefore you are making best use of your inputs and improving your efficiency, which is a win-win for the climate. If you just move to the third slide, please. So it's not just all about Deal Farm and ABP. There are other players involved here, and the reason why they're involved. So first of all, we have 1,250 farmers in Northern Ireland that the Horizon scheme is open to breed these Aberdeen Angus calves. But we have partnered up with 2 breeding companies, the major breeding companies in Northern Ireland, that is AI Services and Genus, to give breeding advice on our dairy farms, which ultimately then delivers those calves, which go through the production chain, and they're fed nutritional products and advice given by United Feeds. And United Feeds is also a subsidiary of the Deal Farm Group. And as I said, so within that time period, 18 to 20 months from the calf arriving on the farm, that carcass is then processed by ABP. But going back a stage, really it's 9 months before that calf is born that a breeding decision has to be made on the farm. And that's the reason for bringing in those breeding companies, is to help our farmers make the decisions in terms of the genetics that they're using on farm. So just move to the last slide, just to give this a bit more meat on the bone. So where we see this as a benefit to us is, in terms of our dairy farmers, by bringing in the breeding companies and those breeding advisors, they come onto the dairy farm and they take a holistic view of the animals on that farm, and they take a holistic approach to breeding those animals. And part of that is bringing onto farms new technology, such as use of sex semen. Now, what that actually means is you can determine the sex of the calf. So our dairy farmers can select their very best cows to breed their dairy females from that they wish, which in turn then frees up more animals in the herd that can be bred to beef bulls. And in this case, these are genetically superior beef bulls. And both breeding companies have put forward 2 bulls each, which are used by the farmers on their farms to breed these calves. And by using this technology, sex semen technology, and the Aberdeen Angus sires, we're actually ending up with more higher value calves born on Deal Farm producers' farms, which then can enter into this supply chain. So it actually means extra income for our Deal Farm producer at this stage. The other point to make is that the scheme is launched a year past. It is a fully integrated supply chain. As the scheme grows, there is the potential for Deal Farm producers to add a second income stream to their farm by getting involved in the rearing and the finishing of Aberdeen Angus beef animals. And this might be something that would encourage a son or daughter back into the business and give them an enterprise of their own to actually start them on the ladder in terms of their farming career. So we see that as a big positive as well, in encouraging the next generation into farm and using some of this exciting technology that's out there. And finally, as I mentioned, the calves, right from their rearing stage right through to finish, are fed diets produced by United Feeds, so there's full traceability all the way through, and there's advice available from the United Feeds nutritionists and advisors. And as United Feeds is part of the Deal Farm Group, it basically completes the loop, and it also then adds additional revenue to United Feeds and through to the Deal Farm Group, which, as I said at the beginning, is a cooperative, and income that is generated is passed back through milk price back to our farmers. So we are very encouraged to be part of this initiative with ABP, and it adds to the portfolio of farmer initiatives that we have launched over this past 3 years. So I think that brings me to a conclusion.
Thank you so much, Neville. It's really interesting to see the two sides of the story from Dale Farm and from ABP, and understand how you benefit from it. So thank you so much, and we'll see you back at the Q&A session. And our last speaker for today is Francis Lively, from the AFBI. So that is the Agri-Food and Biosciences Institute, and he will give us a bit of a more higher view of what is happening on that field. So Francis, up to you.
Thank you, Géraldine, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So my name is Francis Ivey. I work for AFBI, the research organisation in Northern Ireland that's involved with a lot of the research on the agri-food side, spanning from production right through to food quality. So this afternoon, I'm going to take a few minutes just to run through some of the work that we're doing on sustainability of beef production, and to give some of an overview at a high level of where sustainability from beef production may be at the moment and may go in the future. So if we move on to the next slide, please. So if we think of sustainability of our agri-food systems, it's probably one of the biggest challenges that's come up in recent years, and certainly a lot of talk on climate change and a lot of emphasis on that. So essentially within AFBI, with a lot of our research focus over recent years has been around the environmental side, but we do know that there's a high demand going forward in the future. There's a high demand for energy, there's a high demand for water, and a high demand for food. So it's important that we actually do meet these demands, and certainly thinking of food production, we've got to enhance our ability to make food, but we've got to make better use of our resources so that any production methods we're employing does not actually lead to any detrimental effect on the environment. So it's very hard maybe to explain, but certainly this triangle might sort of help to sort of direct us. So if we think of the farm side, for a farm to be sustainable, we've got to be profitable. So all links in the supply chain have got to be profitable, right from the farmer right through to the retailer. And we've got to supply society with what society wants. So our society today has high expectations for beef. They want to make sure that it's obviously that it eats well, it's got a high eating quality, it's got it's certainly meeting the consumer demands in terms of eating quality, flavour. They want to make sure that it's been produced in a safe manner, that it's high, good, wholesome food. But they also want to ensure that actually the rural economy is still functioning, and that is good. And they want to ensure that the animal welfare and the crop welfare, both health and welfare, has been considered throughout its production. And thinking of the environment, obviously that's very important as well, as what with the soil, the water, and the energy, and indeed the biodiversity. And really, any part of this is like a jigsaw, and each piece needs to go together to do it in a holistic manner that everyone can benefit from that, and we can deliver a sustainable food production going forward. So we could say it's one of our biggest challenges, but it is also one of our biggest opportunities, and I think it'll be a massive opportunity for us over the next decade, and indeed to meet some of these targets that we've already set out. So if you move on to the next slide, please. And really, agriculture has been highlighted as a major contributor to climate change. And we know that in Northern Ireland, 27% of greenhouse gas, or 27% of emissions comes from agriculture. But although it does is a high contributor to greenhouse gas and climate change, it's also quite unique in that it's got the ability to be part of the solution as well. So from this diagram that's in front of you, it might be slightly complex, but it just shows some of the opportunities. So although we know in agriculture with ruminant livestock, they account for over about 68% of the emissions through enteric fermentation and methane production. So that's a very high amount of the problem, and certainly that's probably one of the largest concerns for beef production. Likewise, nitrous oxide is a major contributor with 22% of the overall problem. So collectively together, they are really two of the main issues. But with agriculture, with our grass production, utilising CO2 and photosynthesis, we can also use up some of the CO2 from the atmosphere, and then in that there we're producing the grass, we're producing the food for the animals, for the ruminants to live on. And indeed also our soils are important as well, where our soils can sequester quite a lot of carbon into them. So we are we actually are both a contributor but a major part of the solution as well. In Northern Ireland, we have a large land mass, and a lot of our land is unsuitable for other things such as cereal production. So over 70% of our land is classified as LFA, and really it's not, it can't be utilised to say grow cereals. So really by having livestock there, we're actually utilising that land and converting, really using that land to produce grass, and that grass to produce food. So it is very sustainable, but we just need to look to the future and have a holistic approach to beef farming in the future that actually minimises any environmental impact. So let's move into the next slide now. So one of the key aspects of this is soil, and soil is a major player in climate change. And really, soil provides a lot of ecosystem services are provided by soil. So really, if we think, we'll not go through these all today, but certainly thinking of the future, the soil basically is really important at producing the grass that then ultimately goes into the animal, either as graze grass or as ensiled grass. And that's a major energy provider for livestock. And basically in Northern Ireland, we are very fortunate that we've got a good climate for growing grass, and we can really grow a lot of grass to feed the livestock to minimise the amount of concentrates that are needed to finish livestock. We heard earlier about the impact of deforestation and how UK beef has a much lower carbon footprint than stuff from Brazil, or meat from Brazil. So it's really important that we minimise the amount of concentrates our animals need. And as George mentioned in his first presentation, how we actually utilise beef cattle, get beef cattle out to grass as early in the spring as possible and keep them at grass for as long in the autumn to really maximise the amount of beef produced from grass. And that's a major role going forward to meet some of our targets in the future. Carbon sequestration is also very important, and this is how much carbon we can lock up in the soil. And some of our colleagues in AFBI have shown that anything from 1 to 2 tonnes of carbon can be locked up in the soil, each year. So that's a major sink, so a major part of the solution. And within that, both our hedgerows and our trees do form our important sinks there as well. The other aspect is nutrient cycling. And beef cattle, obviously, with any livestock, any ruminant livestock, there's just the cycling of nutrients. And really, this is important to incorporate into the soil and to improve the quality of the soil. That actually improves the ability of the soil to sequester more carbon and to actually potentially grow more forage as well. So that is important. And going to the future, there are ways that we can actually improve this. And certainly if we're thinking of nitrous oxide and thinking of minimizing the amount of nitrogen that we need to, chemical nitrogen we need to apply, there are ways that we can actually look at improving this and actually mitigating this to help to improve some of the climate change approaches in the future. So moving on to the next and final slide. And really, what I want to do now is just to give you a little vision for some of the environmental sustainability work that we are involved with in AFBI, and some of the work that we are currently undertaking and hope to undertake again in the future. Minimising GHG emissions. I mentioned earlier, 68% of GHG or of total emissions is from methane production. So there's a lot of ongoing work as how we can actually minimise this. And both George and Neville mentioned different production systems that they're involved with. And really one of the key focuses of these is to have good animal health and good animal welfare. So these animals and having the correct genetics there. So initially having the correct genetics, then putting the right management practice in place that these animals grow efficiently, making sure that they're offered as much forage as possible and as much grass as possible will be key to make sure those animals grow at a suitable live weight gain throughout their lifetime, and then be slaughtered at a young slaughter age. And getting that age of slaughter reduced is very important for reducing the amount of total GHG emissions, total methane emissions per kilogram of beef. And that's a key thing that we need to look at in the future. We're very fortunate at AFBI that we've got 2 respiratory chambers for beef cattle or for large ruminants, and these are world-leading research facilities. And we have a lot of ongoing work that some of it is funded locally, some of it is European funded, and a lot of the research coming out of this will be very important to actually guide us in the future at how we can actually meet some of our targets. I say within AFBI, we need to look at our carbon sinks, and some of our colleagues within AFBI are looking at how we can improve carbon sequestration to actually take as much carbon out of the atmosphere as we possibly can and lock it in our soils. And to do that, they're one of the aspects we're looking at alternative forages, and some of these alternative forages include multi-species swards, and these are swards that include clover that minimise the need to put on chemical fertiliser. But they also have a different root structure to the normal grass that perennial ryegrass that we'd normally see in our fields. And within this here, this might not only improve the soil structure, but it has potential to lock up additional carbon in the soil. And this is an area that we're very interested in AFBI, and not only in AFBI, but there's a project we've got that we're involved with called Super G, and it's an EU project. And really, multi-species swards is something that we're looking at right throughout the EU at the moment, and just the ability to deliver food to the animals, but also to really the environmental benefit of this as well. And not only will it improve carbon, potentially improve carbon sink, it'll also improve biodiversity. And it's important that we deliver biodiversity aspects as well. So in the interest of time, I'll maybe just finish there to allow time for questions. But overall, you know, within some of our work in AFBI, there is the production side, but that we're involved with, but the environmental side is equally as important. And really, I'll just go to the very last slide now, and really, or maybe that is the last slide. But basically, what I want to thank you and to mention that, you know, in our beef production, once we want to deliver society with beef, good wholesome beef, it's important that all the society has everyone together works collectively to ensure that there's profit for the farmer, profit for the people involved in the supply chain, that society gets what society expects in terms of consumer expectations, but also that the environment is protected as well. And this is where we'll get sustainable production. And we all do have a key role to play here. And certainly the Horizon project that we've already mentioned of is a good example of two organisations working together to deliver this goal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Francis. That was really interesting and giving us a bit of an overview of this topic. As you said, it's crucial for Northern Ireland, so that was really interesting. So if I can invite all the guest speakers to come back virtually, and don't hesitate to ask questions in the question panel. We have a first one which would be for George, and also maybe for Neville. How do your customers view the work that you do around sustainability, and what kind of feedback do you get from them?
I'll take it first, George here. Yeah, I mean the supply chain and the sustainability of the supply chain has now become very, very important when you're dealing with your customer, when you're trying to get a contract to supply. The customer certainly feels very strongly and wants to know exactly what you're doing to reduce your carbon footprint and what you're doing to try and be as sustainable as possible. And they're only to if you are doing something that they can make a claim on the packaging, to relay that to the consumer, that you are that there's something different about the product, there's something more sustainable, down to where we introduced cardboard packaging for our steaks. This is where you put the meat on a cardboard tray instead of a plastic tray. They enhance all this, and it has now become a very necessary tool to supply the retailer, is the way we see it in ABP.
Okay. Neville, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, well, I can agree exactly with George. I know exactly where he's coming from in terms of customers that we supply dairy products to are very interested in right from the farm all the way through the production cycle to that end product in terms of environmental sustainability. And therefore, the initiatives at farm level that we have introduced are of interest to customers. I suppose it gives us an edge to show that we are looking at this. We are ahead of the game. We are looking at this. We try to educate the customer that sustainability is about, it's about profitability for these farms. So we're looking at how we can get them to use their inputs better. Because if you use your inputs better, that's a win-win. It makes the farmer more profit. But it also reduces your carbon footprint, and therefore that keeps farmers on the farm and producing the products that we do. Customers are also, as I said, interested both at the farm level and at our production sites. And some of the things to note there, at our cheese site just outside Cookstown, a large proportion of the energy there is delivered from a solar farm. 30-acre solar farm, which is we're the sole outlet for the energy from that and part of our production process. And you can get into all sorts of things with customers in terms of packaging also. And I suppose one of the notable things that we have is if you buy our 2-litre bottles of liquid milk, those plastic bottles are blown on site, and they would have somewhere in the region of 10% less plastic in them than other competitors on the market. So yeah, all of that has a big bearing on customers and winning contracts with customers.
Of course. A question for Francis. You've mentioned a lot of many options and many work streams that could be addressed to reduce the negative impact of farming in Northern Ireland. If you had one recommendation to the local authorities or to the farmers to implement, what would it be?
I think if we're thinking of climate, the one key aspect is grassland. We've got a massive area of grassland in Northern Ireland, and we have the ability to really utilize this in terms of, it's a massive source of energy, massive source of feed for our livestock. We need to really capture that there and get as much beef production from grassland as possible and minimize the amount of concentrates, many of which are imported, going into the diet of these animals. So we need to really maximize grass and good quality grass going into the diets of animals to really capture this. By doing that, we're locking up more carbon in the soil. We're improving our grazing systems. We're capturing carbon, but we're also getting a local supply of good quality feed into those animals. That is health benefit as well. There's other benefits, not only climatic sides. There's health benefits in terms of fatty acid ratios, and again, consumers want a green image on the packaging, and I think certainly if we can do that, it's a win-win.
Great, Okay, thank you. I'm going to thank you all. We sadly don't have more time, but that's such a fascinating topic, and well, this is an everyday concern. Really, it's something that we see literally on our plates every day. So, really, really interesting. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you for everyone who has attended this webinar. Don't forget to look at our webpage, to take action, and to attend our next webinar, which is next Monday. So thank you, everyone, and have a great afternoon.